G'day legends, I hope that you're having a fantastic day and doing great wherever in the world you are. Now, we're about 600 metres away from Gaza as well, straight behind me, and it has been a fairly close night, although maybe I'm seeing things, but we are actually seeing some strikes directly behind me. As I say, it's been a fairly close night. Now, what we have heard today, only in the past few hours, that there has been more Hamas combat swimmers in the water try and swim around from Gaza, then into, you can hear that coming, big strikes, swim into Israel from there, but have been shot in the water and discovered there. But what I want to talk about is some hard truths, maybe some uncomfortable truths, as the Israeli Prime Minister really announces that the next stage is imminent. So only this evening he came out and said, I want to tell you, we are at the moment, we are striking the enemy with great force. Yesterday, our attacks in Gaza, we struck the enemy the harshest blow they have taken in a single day. We killed dozens of terrorists, possibly even more. At this very moment, we're clarifying the exact magnitude of the strike. However, we also know that even as we are active in additional sectors in the north, we are hitting whoever tries to attack us, in Judah and Samaria as well. We stand before the next stage. It is coming. You know it, and you are part of it. You are part of the vanguard. I greatly appreciate what you know how to do. Your fighting spirit, your readiness to save our country from these animals, and I'm certain that you will succeed. We have only one mission: to smash Hamas. We will not stop until we complete it. With your help, I rely on you. The people of Israel rely on you. I am proud of you and I salute you. So that's what the Prime Minister said to soldiers, of which we are really presuming that he's saying to those soldiers who are going to be the first ones to go in. He uses the word vanguard, so the first to cross over into Gaza. We've had limited raids, but not a full scale, I guess, of ground invasion of there. But we're waiting for that, and it's on the tip of everyone's tongue and the forefront of everyone in Israel's mind, media, civilian, soldier, for the past now over 2 weeks. But we need to talk about some of these uncomfortable truths, and I'm happy to get a bit of hate on this. And this is why I come to areas like this, is to discover what I learn, because, you know, you can't do it unless you're sort of on the ground. You get the feeling, you get the vibe, and, you know, collecting a lot of information. But Hamas is not freedom fighters. They are terrorists. That is no ifs, no buts. That's what it is. And there is a lot of civilian support for Hamas, and a lot of people who are also sympathetic towards Hamas. They've committed atrocities against civilian population, against other soldiers, complete war crimes. They've taken hostages, and they've done things which are unforgivable in anything. It is just horrific. But in that same breath, we also have to talk about these strikes that have continued in Gaza for now a number of weeks, that they have killed thousands of people. Well, they're being reported to have killed now over 5,000 people, and a large amount of that being children. Israel cut off the water, which is against any of the Geneva Convention as well, to actually cut off the water. You're not allowed to do that. Now, we do know that it's back on, but using siege tactics against a civilian population, very difficult, because if you've got some civilian population sympathetic towards a terrorist group who's mixed in with the civilian populace, how do you actually attack that? But that said, still have to operate within the boundaries. And we know Joe Biden has spoken about that Israel needs to see to those boundaries and uphold those boundaries as well. But it is a harsh truth that there's been, you know, bad things done on both sides. But we haven't seen Israel taking hostages and the sexual assaults and all of this sort of shit we saw when they crossed here. Another uncomfortable truth is civilians crossed with Hamas. And I don't think I'd call them civilians. If there's people coming across after Hamas who are stealing things, who are raping people, who are killing people, hurting people, they're not civilians anymore. They're combatants. They're terrorists as well. Now, of course, it's not all the civilians. Of course it's not. But, you know, people do paint people with the same brush instinctively. And what we also need to speak about is the support going into the civilians there. The civilians behind me who are getting bombed for weeks, they're not guilty of anything but where they live. But something we also need to talk about is, what is a defeat of Hamas? What is a defeat? Is it killing every single member? Well, look at how that has gone for all all the countries of the coalition, look how that has gone to try and defeat terrorist groups. Look at history. It doesn't work quite well. What is actually a defeat? What is the end goal here? I don't know. Is it to occupy Gaza? Is it to kill every Hamas member? Because that just may not work. And these ongoing strikes, these weeks of bombing, what do you think that does to these primarily young men who live there? If you're a 14-year-old boy, a 12-year-old boy primarily, and your parents have been wiped out, you've grown up there, and what you see is you see the older guys, they're firing some rockets, and then you see fighter jets and Apaches and tanks firing on you with greater force. By this, are we radicalising a whole generation within there as well? This is always that hard line to push of where are you striking these terrorist groups, and then when is it then radicalising a whole new generation? And that is what I fear we may be doing, but not only radicalising there, absolutely not. We could be radicalising globally for Islamic Jihad. You see this, the Muslim countries who are stepping up. Look at the protests we see around the world. People are carrying Taliban flags, Mujahideen flags, ISIS flags. That could there be a mass radicalisation as well that expands this conflict, not only over borders, but over decades potentially. As we had the war on terror. Could this be the start of something like that again, with larger players involved as well? How, with this defeat, is Israel going to recover as well from the blunders they had? No one can deny, and everyone is calling it out, there was huge breakdowns of intelligence, military, communications, all of this on the day that happened. How could that actually happen? And to get faith back in those, how will it go? There's no guarantees that a ground invasion will actually be 100% successful of what people are thinking. Yes, Israel has the greater military, but if you read anything about how asymmetric warfare tactics happen, well, the smaller asymmetrical guerrilla force has a lot of power. I recommend anyone to read Sebastian Junger's book, Freedom, and he talks about this, and how the small insurgents like that can really shift a battle space. Look at the Taliban versus the entire coalition. I know this is more localised, but in that quickly it can become non-localised in the north, across borders, all of that. So we don't actually know how a ground invasion will occur. But what we do know is if it does occur, which it's looking most likely that it will be unbelievably bloody. It won't be hundreds dead. It won't be thousands dead. It will be tens of thousands dead. And I'll always be on the side of the civilians. That civilians who are there, whether they've had pamphlets dropped or not. If I was there with my family and those pamphlets dropped, I'd be in the fucking south. But we know Hamas is also using them as shields, as bait for PR too. It is a really horrible thing. But in this, we're seeing the Muslim world really rise up and in solidarity as well for the people of Palestine. And we see this with then the marches as well going on as well, with a number of people in this. And there's a big division, and in politics already all around the world that are so divided, where does this actually lead us to? But it is interesting of where a ground invasion will go. But like I've said, there's no guaranteed success of that either, with everything to lose as well. We have also seen, just on the road, and I'll show some footage here, Merkava tanks, of course, Israel's main battle tank, with the cope cages on top, which have been, famously brought in by Russia for the top attack weapons and the drones, but they are very, very useful. People take the piss, but it actually really does work. But that to me speaks that there is a realistic drone threat that they're very worried about. It's not one or two, they're very worried because there's a lot of Merkavas with them, as well as it does speak to me that there is going to be some level of urban warfare close up in this as well. But as well in this sort of uncomfort is, how did people expect Israel to react? People cross the border, 1,400 people get massacred, probably more, hundreds get taken hostage. What is the proportional response to this? Is it this? Is it what's going on behind me? You saw in the beginning of this, the massive bombings. Is that proportional? Is it something less? Is it political? We don't know. That's something for people to make up, but it's easy to sit here and judge that, or sit somewhere and judge that. And the civilian casualties should be avoided at all costs, at every fucking turn, everywhere. That should be counted. But it is, those calculations of what is the cost is very, very difficult to come up with. As well, what we do want to speak to is the living in peace with some other nations as well, sort of out of the Great War on Terror with Islamic Jihad and these groups. A lot of these groups have got very strong, and a lot of the ties with countries in this will be going back, will be destroyed now for decades. With peace with other countries could be stepped back absolutely decades if this crosses across other borders. That we could really see where we were after like 9/11 with things like racial tensions, religious tension. We could absolutely see that set back absolutely decades, and that is difficult as well because I feel like we have come a long way. But as well, I've spoken about this and I'll preach this to the hills. If there was a Free Palestine rally that was free Palestinians of Hamas, I would be the first one there, waving the flag, walking down the main street. That's what people need to focus on. The reason this is happening, it's not because Israel and the Jewish people here are radical. It's not because of that. Are there radical people in any military? Yes. And sometimes, I criticise a lot of what Israel's done. But if Hamas wasn't there, that would not be happening. For all the faults of Israel, that wouldn't be happening. So the thing should be to free Palestine of Hamas. Now, is this the right way of going about it? I don't know. But that is where that should really start and end in that too. But it is very difficult. We have seen Israel do, some very bad things, taking over houses, bombing bloody this, thousands of people dead, hundreds of children, if not in the thousands as well. So there are some hard truths in this, and in war there's always two sides. There just is. And sadly in war, no one really comes, it may start in the most innocent place, but no one comes out completely innocent of everything. War is dirty, war is hell. This is why war should be avoided. But against a terrorist organisation like this, well, what the fuck do you do? Now, we know more pamphlets have been dropped across northern Gaza as well, as people expect an imminent invasion. Now, these pamphlets, I'll show you the actual pamphlet, but it says, if your will is to live in peace and to have a better future for your children, do the humanitarian deed immediately and share verified and valuable information about hostages being held in your area. The Israeli military assures you that it will invest maximum effort in providing security for you and your home, and you will receive a financial reward. We guarantee you complete confidentiality. So leaning on then the civilian populace to try and put in information about where these hostages are. We know that will be really priority number one of the Western world for the dual citizens in there as well, and the foreign nationals who are being held hostage, is to get them out, relying, pushing on the civilian population. We've seen this be very, very useful in the Russo-Ukrainian war as well, with getting partisans on side, giving information. We even saw this in Afghanistan. Anyone who's familiar with what the CIA was doing there, they were doing similar things to that, to, where's the Taliban, pay, blah, 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 all of that sort of thing. But overnight, we know that the IDF had struck 400 targets in massive, massive attacks, and have confirmed that they have neutralised Ibrahim al-Sayr, who is the head of the anti-tank missiles array of Hamas Northern Brigade. In 2021, Ibrahim al-Sayr fired an anti-tank missile which killed Senior Sergeant Omar Tabib and injured additional IDF soldiers. So those attacks are still going on from there. But relying on then partisans can be difficult as well, because, well, these attacks going on and killing children and all of this, that helps Hamas's cause. There's more support for Hamas now than there ever has been around the world because of the images coming out of there. And this is why Israel should absolutely try and minimise civilian casualties as low as they possibly can, not only for the humanitarian aspect of it, but for the tactics and strategy of it as well. Because it is horrible to see, but it does give Hamas more power and more credibility as well to people, saying, well, look what they've done to us. This is why we did that. So that is it. But I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I'm not sure what I'm going to do tonight, as it is pretty quiet, but I'll be heading out of the country in a couple of days, and I'll probably miss the ground invasion. I wish I didn't have to leave, but I do have a lot coming up. Thank you guys very much. Please, wherever you are, look after yourselves, look after your family, and, us as humans don't need to do this to each other. We have fucking choices. We don't need to kill each other. We don't need to do horrific things to each other. We all have that choice. But I also see why, as a soldier myself, that lethal action does need to be taken sometimes, especially against radical terrorists like this. But I guess my closing message is I do feel, are we radicalising a whole nother generation? Thank you very much. Bye-bye.